Hey, George Anderson here from IntelligentRunning.com, and welcome to the third installment in Fat Loss for Runners. It's a little mini-series I've been sending over to you for the last few days. Well, in the first two videos we talked about mindset, and then we talked about nutrition in the last video. Today, what I want to talk to you about is your actual training. So what you do if your objective is to lose fat. Now, this is one of those subjects where there's always going to be a bit of controversy. People are always going to write in or email in or phone me up or whatever and say, well, you know what, this works for me, and it's completely the opposite of what you said. And that's great. All I'm going to go through today is some of the things that I know to work and some of the reasons why conventional wisdom doesn't always work. Well, for a lot of people I've come across in the past anyway. So we're going to cover two main things. The first one is we're going to talk about your actual running training, because that's kind of what you're up to, right? You're training for an event maybe, or you just want to get out there and run. So we're going to look at what you're doing when you're running in order to help you get the best results for running, but also primarily for fat loss. Remember, think back to that first video, the first blog post we did in this series. We talked about mindset and making sure that you've got your priorities right. So you've made that decision that actually you're going to train for fat loss first and foremost, and performance as a secondary thing. Yeah, you want to do well in your race, but actually, you know, if you cross the line in a great, slim, toned, sexy body, then you'll be a little bit less concerned if you're 5 minutes slower than if you'd followed a pure marathon or half marathon or 10K training protocol. So what do you do when you run? Well, let's talk about one of the big problems, first of all, that runners face when they embark on a training program. And that's what we call LSD. Now, I'm not talking about something kind of wacky you might do at the weekends, although actually normally it is done at the weekends, coincidentally enough, but LSD in this case is an acronym for long, slow distance. So long, slow distance running is a staple of any distance training program. And it has to be. You have to build up the distance, build up the miles in order to fully train, prepare yourself, your body for the event. But what most runners do, and the mistake most runners make, is that they focus so much on the LSD, they forget all the other stuff that goes in, all the other good stuff that will help burn body fat. Now the problem with LSD is that actually it's the last thing you should be doing lots of if you want to burn fat. So let's just accept that we have to do some of it, and the rest of the time we want to be working on these other things, which I'll talk about in a moment. But let's take a look at LSD for the time being, and just be aware when you're doing a long, slow distance training, don't freak out, you still need to do it, but I recommend no more than one long session a week, including recovery runs. We'll come on to what you should do with cross-training and all the rest of it in a moment. But when you do long, slow distance running, what happens is, the idea of it is, the objective of LSD training is that you keep your heart rate at around 65% of its maximum. Okay, that's what it is. If you go too high, we've discussed this in other posts, it's actually in my blueprint, my Intelligent Running Blueprint too. You go too high, you're kind of in that junk mileage range, and we don't want to be there. So the objective is to be at around 65% max heart rate, which is cool, but the problem with this is it starts to break down your muscle. So it actually starts to break down the muscle you're trying to build. And we don't want to be kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger here, but the more muscle you have in your body, the better from a fat loss perspective. And the reason for that is that it takes more calories to sustain muscle than it does to sustain fat. So if you're breaking it down when you go for a run, then that's not a good thing for your fat loss prospects. It also, a lot of long, slow aerobic training also causes an inflammatory response in your body, which is not good from many health angles. Inflammation in the body is a precursor, chronic inflammation rather, so doing it over and over again for long periods of time, we're talking about years here, is a precursor to things like cancers, some cancers, heart conditions, and all sorts of other aging and degenerative diseases. So not a good thing to do loads and loads and loads of LSD training. Now, I'm not about to say you shouldn't do any long running, because I'm a runner, you're a runner, we like to run, we like to get out there. We've got to kind of understand what we're doing to our bodies when we do this. A lot of long, slow distance running also causes many more free radicals to be formed in our bodies, which has an oxidative effect. So we start to break down cells, which is what we talk about antioxidant foods and superfoods, blueberries and almonds and walnuts, things with loads of goodness packed into them. These are antioxidants. These will neutralize some of those free radicals. But at the same time, loads and loads of LSD training, you're going to get a lot of free radicals, and you're not going to be able to neutralize them all. So there are many arguments against doing long, slow distance training. I don't want to kind of put you off here, because otherwise you're just going to turn off from this blog completely and think, well, what's the point in running in the first place? It's just going to kill me. But I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting that for a moment. But what I am saying is that you just need to be aware of what's happening with your body and actually how we're designed to function and operate. And if you're trying to burn fat, lots and lots and lots of chronic cardio, chronic aerobic 65% max heart rate training is not the way to go. You're in the fat burning zone. Have you heard of that? The fat burning zone? This is one of those kind of weird paradoxes that we hear all the time. It's you've got to train in the fat burning zone if you want to burn fat. It kind of makes sense, but not the whole story. You spend a lot of time in the fat burning zone, which is the 65 to 75% max heart rate zone, and you will burn predominantly calories will come from fat. Okay, that's a given. However, you increase the intensity, which we're going to come on to in a moment. You increase that intensity, and you're going to burn overall more calories. And even though a smaller percentage will come from fat, a greater number in total of fat calories will be burned. Okay, you with me? You still with me? Okay. Well, let's just leave that there, because I want to move on. There's a load more stuff to cover in today's video. So, if we're talking about maybe just doing one long, slow distance run in the week, what do we do with the rest of the week? You want to get maybe 4 or 5 training sessions a week in. So if we're doing 3 runs, I'm a big fan of less is more, right? But if we do one long run, I want to definitely get in a threshold run, no matter what distance I'm training for, whether it's a marathon or a 5K run. I want to be doing a threshold run. I'm not going to go into that in detail here. There's explain the blueprint. If you haven't got it, get over there onto the side of the site, the website, and stick your details in. I'll send it over to you. But we've got to be doing some threshold running. It's a great one. It gives you a good balance as well between performance and fat burning, because the intensity is a lot higher. And what we're after here is what's called EPOC. Don't you just love these acronyms? EPOC, excess post-oxygen consumption. So what we're after here is how much extra oxygen our bodies consume after the workout. So in a long, slow distance training session, you're going to burn a number of calories, but then afterwards, your metabolism kind of goes back down to its normal level again. You ramp up the intensity with something like a threshold run or intervals, which we'll talk about next. That's where the fun really starts. You ramp up the intensity, your EPOC is just skyrocketed. It just goes up through the roof. And that's the difference, because it's not just the calories you burn in the workout, it's what happens afterwards. And you may have even felt that, when you kind of finish a workout, it's like an hour later, you're still thinking, geez, whew, my pulse is just through the roof. It's still absolutely nailed. It's because your body's still consuming oxygen to recover and to repair itself. And that process requires energy. And that's where you get the increased metabolism, because you're burning more calories after the workout as well as what you burn during the workout.